I'm so depressed. All right.
Well then.
Hello and welcome back to my Let's Play of Persona 5 New Game Plus. We are here ready to begin the first of several Mementos focused episodes that we're going to be undergoing over the course of this playthrough. Which means that we're going to be going to Mementos, we're going to be dealing with as many of the requests that we have as possible. The only one we only currently have one, but quite usefully and quite interestingly is that we can even find the person that we're talking, that's been mentioned about, just by talking to these people outside the school. And they're the people about whom this mission kind of revolves around. You see there, Daisuke Takanashi, who is the person whose heart we're going to change inside Mementos, is mentioned in that little conversation there. So yeah, we're going to be going to Mementos, we're going to do a fair bit of grinding, we're going to gain a fair few new personas as well, which I'm going to spend some time talking about. And then hopefully we're going to have an opportunity to talk about some of the current confidant links that we can unlock and that we're currently working on at the moment. And we'll also have a bit more of an involved discussion about the social stats that we have, knowledge, guts, etc. Talk a bit more about how those stats evolve, the requirements that we have for each of those stats, and what we can do in order to actually improve those stats as much as possible, because a large amount of the game is, revolves around these sort of activities. And I think it's useful to at least have some idea as to talking about this sort of stuff just for now. So, we're going to have a conversation with Yusuke just before heading into Mementos, talking about entering, stuff like that now, and I will talk to you when we enter Mementos.
Hey!
Well.
Okay. Now then. No. Listen up.
Right?
What do you mean?
Hold a moment.
I see.
Yeah!
Well then.
Let's take him down. Hey! All right, I'm gonna bust loose. Let's go!
So we are here at the start of Mementos, and another good reason to choose to do Mementos today is because today is Pollen season. So we have the pollen warning, and so we're going to be able to see one of the multiple different interesting effects that the weather can have on Mementos. So when we have pollen, it means that a fair few of the enemies that we'll encounter and things like that will be sleeping, which means that they're easy targets for our ambushes, and which makes the whole part of going through this whole process that little bit easier, which is always nice. Because we have only cleared Kamoshida's palace, we will be able to enter the next level of Mementos below what we've done so far, but only that particular set of levels, and then we'll be blocked off once more, and that's going to happen about midway through this episode. I do a lot of extra grinding, because the thing you find is that Mementos, the levels that we'll be going to, will be populated with the enemies from Kamoshida's palace, and at several points I need to find those enemies and recollect them in order for help with future fusions to get the personas that I want to have by the end of this day, to take then into Madarame's palace as we move on later this week.
Well then. Well then. Oh! Well then. This is...
Okay, so you saw there that we can deck out the Mona van with different stickers. This is the 20th anniversary Persona celebration sticker. That was a free download. Again, I've taken most of the free DLC for this game and added it to the game. Seeing as it's free, I don't see why not, but obviously I appreciate that some people can't, won't have access to those downloads, but it's just something that I wanted to do. So, what I wanted to think about now is to talk about some of the persona that we're going to encounter in this episode and how they fit within our continual string of persona, making constant progress down the elemental lines of each persona. But before that, we have to talk about Goemon, which is Yusuke's persona, which we got in the last episode, and being another one of the main characters' personas, there's also some discussion we can have about him. So Ishikawa Goemon was a thief who stole from the rich and gave to the poor in Japan during the Azuchi Momoyama period. The kabuki scene of him sitting on the gate of Nazenji is famous. And we mentioned last time that Yusuke is primarily focused around ice magic and physical attacks. He gets lots of heavy physical attacks going forwards. Another persona that we met in the last episode was Regent, which was the first of several treasure persona. These persona, treasure demons, they call them, but they work similarly in terms of as persona as well. The way they work is that we can't use them in battle, but they get access to a huge number of skills. So Regent in particular has access to first level area of effect magic spells of every single type. So, so you've got Marzio for electric, Maragi for fire, Marbufu for ice, etc. All the way through for all of the different elements. And that makes it incredibly useful to fuse with other things, because then you can fuse it and then transfer as many of those skills as you want onto the new persona that you make. The description of Regent says, a bluish-tinged diamond that Napoleon Bonaparte had mounted to the pommel of his sword. It was named after the French regent Philippe II, Duke of Orleans, who had purchased it in 1717. And you'll find that most of the treasure demons throughout the game are named after famous jewels, gemstones, that sort of thing. Okay. So then the first persona that we've used in this episode was Inugami, which is the continuation of the Fire persona line, which was started with Jack Frost. We've made it up to Huapo, and now we take Huapo, fuse it with Regent to get Inugami. And Inugami is another persona that we'll meet as an enemy in Madarame's palace in the second half of that. Inugami is a dog spirit said to possess people in Japanese lore. Those possessed are in a state of inutsuki and lose consciousness. Onmyoji use Inugami as familiars. A lot of terms I'm not too familiar with. The Japanese sort of folklore isn't my forte there, but I always find it interesting. I love the fact that they have all of this extra detail to include. The next fusion that we're going to make later on in this episode, but I figured I should get all of the persona out of the way now, will be Kushi Mitama, which we get from Saki Mitama, which is our current healing element persona. So we fuse Saki Mitama, I think, with Berith, because we'll encounter lots of Berith later on as we continue down this level of Mementos. And we get Kushi Mitama, who is one of the 4 aspects of Shinto thought. It uses its power to bring good omens. It is said to aid in one's wisdom, observation, and skill, and can mend fractured paths. Okay, continuing on with the list of persona that we're going to meet in this episode, the next one is High Pixie, which is again a healing persona. We take it from Kushi Mitama by again fusing it with either a berith. I think we use a berith in this case just because they are so prevalent in the lower parts of Mementos, of this level of Mementos. High Pixie is just the name of the leader of a swarm of pixies. Any pixie in a leadership role with remarkable power is called by this name. Now, High Pixie is a pretty useful persona for us, at least at this time. It's one persona with the near enough the highest magic stat that we currently have, especially for Joker. You're mine. So another thing you'll notice, probably through the sections that I'll be fast forwarding, is that I spend an awful long time trying to recruit an Obariyon to my team. I failed the discussion with Obariyon so many times. It gets kind of ridiculous. It's quite funny in the end, but eventually we do claim an Obariyon. Obariyon is described as a piggyback monster of Japan that jumps on the back of those who pass grassy paths. It is heavy and not easily removed, but will turn into gold coins if you carry it back home.
Don't an echoey place like this just make you want to go yodelay? I can feel
Do
it.
that and you'll bring a ton of shadows down on us.
So, the reason that I stopped there was just... stopped talking. So, the reason that I just stopped talking there is because we got one of the little character interactions that you get whenever you're driving down in Mementos for a significant amount of time. Throughout in each level, your characters will just chat, have a bit of banter with one another, and I think it's really, really cute. So I'm going to be trying my best to not talk over any of those as much as possible, especially if they're brand new. Now, they're really easy to interrupt, which is a pain. If you interact with an enemy or if you open one of the many doors down here in Mementos, then unfortunately those conversations come to a stop, and it's very frustrating. But that was your first one there with Ryug yodeling for some reason, and there are various other things that we can, other examples of that. There are lots of them as we continue through the game. So back to Obariyon. Obariyon is the first of the personas whose skills are primarily focused around physical and gun type attacks. And in that sense, they don't learn any offensive magic, or any elemental magic moves, which makes them quite interesting and quite useful for fusions, because it means that if you really want to get a specific alternate form or passive effects, if you want to get those passive effects brought onto your new persona, then using a persona which can't inherit a lot of things is quite useful in that regard. Okay, so we are very quickly coming up to the battle with Shadow Takanashi, so I'll quickly go through the remaining persona that we have. The first one is Onmoraki, which is the next in the curse line of persona. We fuse it from slime using Obariyon, using the Obariyon that we just caught, I believe. We could also use Kodama. There are multiple ways of getting to Onmoraki. Onmoraki is described as a monstrous fire-spitting Japanese bird with a man's face. It is actually a corpse that was not given a proper memorial service. They appear before monks who neglect their duties. And we've already seen Onmoraki within Madarame's palace. They are, I believe, the first enemies that we get that have access to the insta-kill move Mudo, and therefore they can be very, very annoying, because insta-kill moves are not fun in this game.
Okay.
Good work.
The next persona that we'll fuse is Mokoi, which is the next in the gun line of personas. We'll fuse it from Obariyon using a jack-o'-lantern right at the end of this episode, I think. And Mokois are described as evil spirits of Merlin lore, believed to be reborn shadows. They kidnap and eat children, and strike down any sorcerer who uses black magic.
Victory is ours.
We probably will have come across them within Mementos, definitely, but because of my internal rules of wanting to fuse everything in this really long chain, we needed to fuse it from Obariyon in order to use it. It was a lot easier for us to go Obariyon to Mokoi and then further onwards, rather than going back the other way. And speaking of going onwards, once we fused Mokoi, we then swiftly can fuse Mokoi into the next level up, which is to fuse Mokoi to Ippon-Datara. which was actually the main enemy in the battle when Yusuke has his awakening. You have 4 Copper Tengu and the middle guy is an Ippon-Datara. And so we've actually come across this guy, but he's a pretty useful physical attacker at this early stage. He's described as a one-eyed, one-legged monster said to live deep in the mountains of Kumano, Japan. It's believed to be the degraded blacksmith god Ame no Mehitotsu no Kami. I butchered that pronunciation, I apologize. I probably should have practiced this ahead of time.
Engine's warmed up and ready to go!
Hell yeah! Let's gun it! Damn it. All this bumping around is hurting my ass.
You got a problem with my swanky interior? Hmm? Then... Oh!
Let's go!
It's not my fault.
What was that?
Come at me, bro.
So we are here with the battle with Shadow Takanashi. Can be a bit of a pain. It's even though he takes the appearance of a Jack Frost type enemy, he is a lot more annoying than a Jack Frost because he does not have the Jack Frost's usual weakness to fire. So I don't believe he has any weaknesses at all. And so it's just a matter of trying to make slow progress. Obviously we can use Morgana's Lucky Punch here as a useful way of dealing a significant amount of damage. Now throughout this battle, this is another enemy who we can use Confusion on in order to grind money off of, but he is a lot more, it's a lot harder to land Confusion on him than it was the very first Mementos boss that we had, Shadow Nakano Hara. Which means that this can be a bit of a pain if you are trying to grind money off it. I do get a pretty significant amount of money from this battle, but I'm just letting you know now that it's a lot more frustrating doing it with Shadow Takanashi than it is with Shadow Nakano Hara. And we get a decent amount of money from here, around probably 50,000 yen. He's still only dropping about 10,000 yen per time he drops money, and we can definitely, hopefully, by the time we get later in the game, and we're continuing to utilize this confusion strategy, we'll actually be able to be earning a fair amount more money off different enemies, just because we can use better persona with higher luck stats. That means that we get more money from them. But yeah, that's going to be it pretty much for this battle. It's just like the last one. He's not too scary to us just because his main attack is just lucky punching us for a crit and then using a minor attack, which isn't too worrying. We can always use Tarunda here to really lower his attack, which means he's really not a threat to us, and then we can just try and use Palimpa a lot. But because I'm also going to be grinding with Mementos a fair amount more throughout this episode, I don't massively use a lot of my potential SP that we have here. So I think I'll just fast forward through the rest of this battle until the confrontation at the end, and I will talk to you once more once we're back around Mementos, you know, zipping around and dealing with things. So I will see you back then.
Thank you. This is my other self. Prepare yourself. I am thou. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's a big help.
Persona! All right. Persona!
All right, consider that.
I didn't have a choice.
What?
Okay, so that is Shadow Takanashi taken care of, and we've spoken about the vast majority of the personas that I wanted to talk about. So now we're going to have an opportunity to talk a bit about the human parameters, the sort of the social stats that we have within the game. And we're also going to talk about the confidants, and this is going to be split across the next 5 Mementos sessions that we do, just so it's not just one big info dump, because I'm not entirely sure I could give you all of that information in the time of just one episode. So we're going to talk about one stat, and we're going to talk about 4 of the 20 potential confidant links that we have. So the first stat we're going to talk about is knowledge, and knowledge, interestingly enough, is the stat that requires the most points in order to maximize out. Judging from the information that I get from, most of this information, just to let you know, I'm getting from is from SP Wiki, which is a Japanese site, but I'm largely using a translator to try and make, understand the most that I can about what's being said about in these different situations. So what they describe it as is, you'll have noticed that whenever our stats increase, we get little orange music notes up here. And the different numbers of music notes tells you how many points are being added to your stat. If it's one music note, that represents 2 points, apparently. 2 music notes generally represents 3, but can also represent 4. And if you see 3 music notes, that usually represents 5, but it could also represent 7 or even 10, depending on different different modifiers that you might have that affect how much of that stat you're building up. And so, obviously, within each of these parameters, within each of the things of knowledge, guts, dexterity, etc., with all of these things, what you're wanting is to collect as many points as possible within each of these stats, and then eventually, once you reach a certain threshold value in each of the stats, you will go up a level with regards to those stats, and that's really useful because different things are always held behind the different ranks of each of your stats. Every single stat has at least one thing locked behind specific ranks. So for knowledge, knowledge requires the most ranks in any, but it's also the one in which you get the most free ranks over the course of just simply playing the game. You get a lot of free ranks in knowledge just by playing the game. And we'll talk a bit about that in a sec.
Is it just me, or do we get the weirdest teachers at our school?
Yeah, some of the questions we get in class are out there.
So, in order to get to rank 2 knowledge, you need 34 points within your knowledge stats. To get to rank 3, you need 82. To get to rank 4, you need 126. And to get to rank 5, you need 192. So, lots and lots of numbers. Kind of just throwing the numbers out there doesn't really help with regards to giving you an idea for how big those numbers represent. But in general, you're only going to be earning 2 to 3 to 5 stat increases per, if you do an activity which is designed around earning knowledge, you will usually only earn 2 to 3, sometimes 5 points to that stat. So what things can we do to boost your knowledge? Well, you can, so the Confidant link, the Star Confidant, there are various rank up events in that which will give you knowledge. If you answer the class problems, as you've seen before, that offers you free knowledge, and there are 50 class problems in the game, so that's 100 points in knowledge straight away just there, if you're getting all of those questions right. On top of that, you can study. If you study standard in a standard location, you get 3 points, but if you study when it's raining, you will get 5 points to your knowledge. You can do reading, so you can read certain books, and most books will give you 5 points to knowledge once you've finished them. You can watch films as well, so the films usually will give you 5 points to knowledge the first time that you see them, and there's also a book that you can read later on which increases the amount that you earn from films, so then you earn 7 points to knowledge every time you see one of the films. The films, in particular for knowledge, are in August, so there's one in August, and there's one in October, so it is something that you sort of have to wait around a little bit for that. We've already seen that you can have little events where you chat to the other members of the Phantom Thieves, and that also leads, not only do you get bonuses to your Confidant link, but you also get bonus to your knowledge of 5, which is always nice. Eventually we'll get a chance to skip lessons, and in doing that, you can then choose to study in those sessions, and if you do that, you'll also gain knowledge. There's also a very specific event that only happens once, where you just gain free knowledge from a chat from Kawakami. I believe it's already happened. That was on the 6th of May. You'll have seen that before. On top of that, you can do the crosswords in LeBlanc, which we've already seen multiple times. They give you access to knowledge. Very recently, in the last few episodes, the last couple of episodes, I think, we saw that you can talk, if you interact with the TV in LeBlanc, there are sometimes quiz questions. Those are also a very free chance to earn some knowledge as well. And then finally, so there's also the Aojiru, so as it cycles through, the way it works is that it gives you a small bonus to one of the 5 stats, and it cycles every time you interact with it. So the first time, I think it's Charm, and then it moves on to a different one each time. Every time it's Knowledge, you can gain points in Knowledge there. You gain Knowledge by successfully completing the Big Bang Challenge. At level 1 you get 2 points to knowledge, at level 2 you get 3, at the final level you get 5. And then finally you can gain knowledge randomly if you rest in bed. So if you rest in bed at any time during, at any time when you could have used that time for another activity. So for example, if you just go to bed instead of going out in the evening, or if you just go to bed on Sunday in the middle of the day instead of interacting with things, then that may often lead to potentially you gaining a little bit of knowledge. You can also gain small boosts to your confidant links as well during those little sleeping events. And then also later on we'll have the ability to work at a bar, and there are people we can talk to at the bar which will also help us increase our knowledge. So knowledge is the one which has the most ranks, sort of the most points required in it, but at the same time it's the one where there's a huge amount of things that you can do for it. You have a huge amount of flexibility with regards to earning knowledge, and at the same time you get by far the most free points in knowledge than any other stat in the game, just through all of the class questions, through the TV quizzes, through the Aojiru, through sort of small random events throughout the game. And then also if you want to study with your friends, you know, that's also another really nice opportunity to earn some knowledge. So knowledge, by far probably the whilst it's important, it's incredibly important in the early game. We've already spoken about how your results in the exams affects different confidants, and that is dependent on your level of knowledge. So building up knowledge at the start can be very, very good, but it's not something that you really need to worry about over the long course of the game. You will almost certainly, or by far, I would say it's one of the more likely ones that you will have maximized by the end of a single playthrough. And so you don't need to be too worried about, you know, with this particular stat. Okay, so I think that is gonna be it. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is what knowledge blocks. So obviously it affects your exam results. We've spoken about that before. It limits your ability to access the priestess confidant line, and it also limits your access to the star confidant line as well. So priestess, I think you need rank 3, and for star you need rank 5.
Huh? No.
Come on, man. Hey!
Is this...
Hey!
Well... What are your thoughts? Shall we go? Well... What are your thoughts?
Let us be off.
Okay, so now that we've stopped talking about knowledge, we can now talk about some confidants. But before we really talk about confidants themselves, we should discuss the methods, or at least the process by which you level up each confidant rank. You'll have seen with our chats with Ryuji, with Takimi, with On, with Sojiro so far, that the way the events work is you interact with the character if they are available on that day. So sometimes, you know, not every character is available on every day in every time slot, so you've got to schedule it in that regard. And then you will then go into a scripted sequence where you will be able to give responses as you learn more and more about their backstory, as you learn more and more about the other people in their lives, and what's sort of holding them back or what they want to change about their local life and what's going on with them. And depending on your choices, some of them will be more positive than others, some of them will give you bigger bonuses than others, and that's something to always pay attention to. You see the number of every time you make a choice, you may well see these little blue music notes, which are different from the orange music notes, and these blue music notes represent points going towards your confidant. Each rank between each confidant requires a certain number of these music notes, and if you get enough music notes within, say, the level up event from rank 1 to rank 2, you will then, next time you interact with that character, be able to take them from rank 2 to rank 3, and so on. So each rank up event links onto the next one, depending on how many music notes you successfully get from those conversations. If you do not get enough, then that person will only interact with you via a sort of a default interaction. There will be no confidant chat in that regard, and you will get a small, I think you get 2 music notes pretty much by default whenever you undergo this. And if that 2 is enough, then the next time you'll be able to chat with them, and if you can't, and if it's still not enough, then you'll again have to go through these standard interactions in order to maximize their confidant. Once you get further in the game, rather than having the standard interactions, you could also invite your confidants out to different places across Japan, and you have the opportunity to then have a different conversation, a unique conversation, in which you'll again have dialogue choices, which you can then hopefully choose the right one in order to best, in order to earn the most music notes and best progress their confidant rate. There are a few confidants whose lengths are improved based upon your exam results, up to a bonus of 1.5%, which is very, very useful. And as I've mentioned before, you should always bring a persona of the same arcana as the confidant that you are improving, because that also gives you a significant bonus, a significant increase to the amount of music notes that you will receive inside those level up.
I want a new model gun. They just get me all fired up.
A new toy is all it takes to reach the hearts of men. Joker! There's a chest! It's pretty hard to drive on the rails.
They're not really made for cars after all. You can do it, Mona.
Better at handling these weapons.
I've gotten pretty good with a whip, but I don't know if that's something to be proud of.
Watching humans makes me think about a lot of things.
Some folks are just people watchers. Maybe it's the same for you.
So with all of that said and done, let's talk about our confidants that we have here. So the first one we'll talk about is Ryuji, which is the chariot confidant, which is unlocked automatically. We'll talk about 4 confidants in this episode, pretty much the first 4 that you get in the game, and all of them are automatically started. So we have Ryuji, who's the chariot confidant, as we mentioned before. He has no real requirements to progress his confidant link forwards, which is always, a blessing. You don't need to maximize any of the social stats in order to keep him going, and theoretically, if you saw him 10 days in a row, you could almost get his rank all the way up to level 10 straight away. However, he's not always available every day. I don't think there's any strict pattern to which days he's available. It's worth noting that he, because a lot of the rank up events that happen with him happen outside, a lot of these rank up events will not happen if it is raining. So the weather will have an effect as to which confidant links are available at which time. By and large, he's not too hard to level up based on 2 things. You usually have the opportunity to earn a decent number of the music notes within each of the conversations that you have with him, and then also there are a multitude of different interactions that you can have, including studying, but also just hanging out, that you can have with Ryuji, which also work towards boosting those confidant links. And within those interactions, he also helps you unlock quite a large amount of different things, including being able to train at the gym, and also unlocking various locations around the map as well, without needing to read the book beforehand, which is the trade-off that you have if you take those characters' invites to these locations, then you will be able to unlock those locations without needing to read the book, which is always positive. Okay, he is one of the characters who is affected by the exam results, which is why getting good exam results early on is very useful, because he's also one of the first confidant links that you get. And yeah, there are a whole host of different events that you have. I think it probably has the most events within the story where he will invite you out to go somewhere out of any other character. All of the abilities that you get through his confidant link will pretty much relate to combat and making combat easier. And as with all confidants, if you get him to rank 10, there are a few other scenes that you will get throughout the story that you won't see otherwise. But also, you will finally get the ability to fuse the ultimate persona of the Chariot Arcana, which in this case is Chiyu. So by getting Ryuji to rank 10, you'll be able to unlock that persona, and also Ryuji's persona will move to its 2nd level form. So the secondary player character, your other party members, each will have a persona that sort of develops into a 2nd form once you get them to rank 10. So that is Ryuji. Next we have the Fool Arcana, which is Igor, the prison master. And there's not really too much to say about this. His rank up events are all story related. They all happen on specific days, depending on, as long as you're, successful with the story and have not failed or have not had a game over yet. And so he gives you access at rank 10 to be able to fuse the persona Vishnu. And there isn't that much else to say, aside from obviously his events are all about your personas being able to fuse more personas and things like that. Being able to hold more personas in your stock. Okay, so the third character, the third confidant link that we're going to discuss is Arm, or the Lover's Confidant link, which again unlocks automatically. She is similar to Ryuji in the sense that her schedule is relatively scattered, her rank up events are during the day. She's also affected by the rain because a lot of her rank up events happen outside, so you'd need to bear that in mind. The main difference that you have between Arn and Ryuji is Arn, being a female confidant, is also a character who's romanceable, and therefore, and also she is someone you can buy gifts. So none of the male confidants in Persona 5, you can give them gifts in order to improve their favorability, in order to improve the number of music notes. But all of the female characters, if you visit them on a date, so if you take them somewhere, you then have the opportunity to give them a gift, and if you do give them a gift, that will greatly that will give you an extra, say, 3 music notes if you choose the right gift, to their confidant link, which is always useful, especially because some of the girls, or some of the female confidants later involved in the game also have a lot slower progression than the ones at the start. So with that in mind, Arn is one, again, she has, just like Ryuji, her confidant link generally increases pretty quickly. It's obviously improved by the fact that you can get, that she's affected by the bonus given by the exam results, but also she, just like Ryuji, will have multiple interactions, multiple social events with the with Joker throughout the game, be that, invites to go to the film or invites out to specific locations. Things like this happen throughout the game, and so that's also something that pops up a lot and means that she's a lot easier to level up than someone who is far less far less involved with the story itself. That being said, it's worth, the fact that she occasionally will, when it does slow down and you do need to spend time with her as opposed to leveling her up, that's not usually too much of a problem, because she also gives you gifts. I should have mentioned this with Ryuji, but you can also gain a gift from taking Ryuji to a specific location. And the same thing works with Arn, so you can gain gifts which you can then decorate your room with. And that, I think, will be coming up within this month, or at least before the end of Madarame's, before the end of this sequence of events. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but we can make the most of the fact that we need to spend the extra time with Arn in order to progress her confidant link by also receiving gifts from her at those times, which is quite nice. So yeah, obviously there are a bunch of extra events that you get if you choose to romance her, and depending on how quickly you do that, depends on when those events are available. And then finally, what else? So yeah, so her rank up events give skills once more, just like Ryuji, with regards to combat, so you get a lot of combat things such as baton pass, the talk abilities that help you out during negotiations, things like that. And finally, getting her to rank 10, be that romanceable or not romance, gives you access to the ultimate lover's persona, which is Ishtar. So you can use Ishtar by the end. And then the final co-op that we're going to talk about today is Morgana's. Morgana is the magician confidant, and just like Igor,
Every time I see the news, I wonder if it's something related to us.
Yeah, these days everything seems to be about our job. character. Right.
Keep going! Run those shadows over!
Ow! Quit moving! We only got so much room in here.
I ate an onion and didn't even get sick, so I'm definitely not a cat.
Whoa, for real? Jeez, you seriously love a challenge. Hey.
Huh? We'll sign off. Roll it again.
No.
Dozens.
This will risk.
Lost.
Flipping it.
Your spot is open.
All this running is making me thirsty.
What do you usually drink? Milk?
I have something. I need a drink. Something real fizzy.
You're such a kid, Skull. Drink your milk and grow up.
Do you use the school store? All their stuff is pretty mediocre.
And they sell out real fast. Joker uses them though, right, Joker?
You guys have really gotten the hang of all the fighting techniques I taught you.
Hell yeah! I spend all my classes practicing these moves in my head.
Well, all right.
Just sitting around in here is making my skills rusty.
Oh, huh. Well, you could always jog outside if you really want. Easy.
Cheers, me.
Hi.
Hey,
No.
if it didn't spread on the internet, nobody would have believed this Phantom Thief stuff.
If you think of it like that, time is on our side.
I'm getting tired. Anyone else want a drink?
Don't spill in the Monacar!
Okay, on, go!
Oh? Why is there so little room in the school desks?
You're always in there, huh? Do you actually listen to the lectures?
My whip handling's starting to look pretty good, huh?
More like you're starting to look like a dominatrix.
Oh, that's just real.
Mona, let's gun it! Hold the wheel steady, Joker!
I've got this! Panther's cheering gives me a turbo boost! Get ready.
You did.
Like to this? Like with the heat. It'll eat. This is what that is. The make you
It was no. Earl Ledin. It's all not. It's all not.
Energy. This one is right. This one is right. Next for now. Finish. It is time, inmate.
Ah, you're back. Yo.
Where have you been searching all along? Confessing while
Hey!